from Hollywood and the four corners of the world. You asked for it. Starring Rich Little. Here's the star of You Asked For It, Rich Little.
Thank you, and welcome to the only show that goes anywhere in the world because you asked for it. Tonight, a penetrating look at the life of an African Maasai warrior, bedtime for penguins, and much more. But first, courage. Each culture has a test for bravery, but some tests are harder than others. The Maasai are the proudest tribe in Africa. They follow a way of life that has remained unchanged for hundreds of years. In this culture, coming of age is a special time of magic and mystery and pain. Because you asked for it, Cynthia Law of Aberdeen, Mississippi, our Janet Langhart was an honored guest at a village in Kenya, Africa. She watched a young man join the ranks of the Masai Warriors.
The Morani of the Masai tribe, Kenya's fiercest warriors. They were once the terror of Africa's eastern coast, renowned for their skill with the bow and arrow and their fearlessness in battle. At a time when Africa's proudest tribes were being sold into slavery, the Masai were left alone, too dangerous for even the slave traders to capture. Today, the slave traders and the tribal wars are long gone, but the Masai tradition of strength and character still prevails.
When a Maasai boy is ready to leave his childhood behind and take up the duties of a man, he must first become a Moran in a ceremony that will test his courage. Under the watchful eyes of the tribal elders, he'll be circumcised. And should he show any sign of fear or pain, or even a twitch of a toe, tremble in his lip, or even a flicker of an eyelash, he'll be branded a coward for life.
A week after the ceremony, the young Maasai officially becomes a Moran. As a sign of his new position, he is decorated with a mixture of red ochre and cow's fat and joins his peers in the bush. For the next 6 years, the Morani will live in the open, free of all responsibilities except the protection of the tribe, living out on the plains surrounded by the largest concentration of wild animals in Africa. Wandering as far as 70 miles from home, they are gone from the manada for weeks at a time, living by their wits and the age-old wisdom of the warriors who have come before them.
Today is a very special day in Chief Niguitu's village because after 3 weeks in the bush, the warriors have returned and a celebration is in order.
Their tribal rhythms are uniquely elegant and mysteriously soothing. The women and children celebrate the warriors' return with their own graceful movements and chants of thanksgiving.
Shortly after the dance, the warriors returned to the bush. And for me, the opportunity to celebrate the victory of the hunt with the Morani of the Maasai tribe was an incredible experience. For thousands of years, these proud people have lived according to their ancient traditions. And for all of us who live in the 20th century, the wisdom of the Maasai is more important today than it's ever been. I'm Janet Langhart in Nakuru, Kenya, and I'm here because you asked for it.
Thank you, Janet. The Maasai tend to be suspicious of strangers who pry into their secrets and customs and ceremonies, so our camera crew faced tests of courage of their own in filming this particular piece. But of course, facing danger and bringing adventure into your home is what You Asked For It is all about.
We'll be back with Rich Little and You Asked For It in a moment.
Penguins on Parade, Australia's nightly ritual that's just for the birds. When the sun goes down on Phillip Island, that's the time hundreds of penguins come up from the sea and get ready for bed. John Stegall of Sandy Hook, Kentucky, saw this fascinating sight and asked that it be shared with you. Well, John, because you asked for it, our special Australian correspondent, Delvain Delaney, gives us a front row seat at this fascinating March of the Penguins.
Thanks, Rich. Located on Phillip Island in southern Australia is a most unusual sight. A grandstand facing the open ocean. Every evening here, it's like the dawn of a new civilization as these fairy penguins, sometimes as many as 2,000 in number, emerge from the ocean. They evoke images of our own evolution from the seas. These penguins, the world's smallest species, are coming ashore after a long day at sea. They march to their burrows, dug into the sand, after spending the daylight hours in pursuit of food for their young. They feed on many kinds of fish, including squid and anchovies. They march towards their burrows like a miniature army, their stomachs stuffed with food. They're only 13 inches tall and look more like toys than real penguins. The night has fallen here on Phillip Island in southern Australia, and all of the penguins are home, curled up in their burrows. We're glad to have been able to bring you this unusual event of the Penguin Parade, because John Stegall of Sandy Hook, New York, you asked for it.
Thank you, Delvain. The Penguin Parade is a tradition in Australia, and You Asked For It, of course, is a tradition in America. Now here's Jack Smith, back with us tonight to show you one of those exciting segments from the original series. Here's Jack.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. You know, the bow and arrow figures in many of our stories, but one of the real experts with this ancient weapon was Andy Vail. He was known as the playful Deadeye Archer. Now, our cameras caught Andy at his best in 1955 as he proved to us that there wasn't anything he couldn't hit.
Each of these shots will be in slow motion, so you can follow the lightning flight of the arrow. Andy looks around for a target. Uh-oh, a powder puff? But now to demonstrate that archery is no powder puff sport, Andy compares penetrating power. First, a German Luger. The Luger couldn't penetrate the sandbag. But the arrow does. Now in the pool, a tricky test of skill and judgment. To make this shot, Andy has to allow for distortion by the water, plus deflection of the arrow. He knocks the arrow. one, Andy tells me, is a timing shot. The idea is to break the balloon just as it comes into position in front of the target. The range is 60 feet. And there's a 50-pound pull on that bow. Two targets, one arrow. But back in the pool, a target that's even tougher. This time, Andy has to get the balloon, but the arrow has to go through this tube. If shaft or even feathers flick the sides, the arrow will be deflected. At 60 feet, the shot must be perfect. A lighted ball. Problem? To break the glass without hitting the filament inside. If Andy succeeds, you'll see a puff of smoke flare up as air hits the unbroken wires. The range is 65 feet, and it's swinging. Oh yes, our playful Deadeye has one more trick. You guessed it. You asked for it.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Ed.
That was a good one.
Good.
Coming up, a visit to the only desert in America where surf's up is a familiar cry. When you think of surfers, visions of Gidget Goes to Hawaii come to mind, or California Dreamers, with their sun-bleached hair blowing in the wind as they ride the waves. But there's a place in Arizona, in the desert, where surfing's just as good, and it's no mirage either. Because of a letter from John Smith of Hill Air Force Base, Utah, we sent our Dale Haramoto to Big Surf in Tempe, Arizona, because you asked for it.
Well, Rich, I wouldn't have believed it either, but you really can surf right here in the middle of a desert. We're here at Big Surf today, and the waves are averaging about 3 to 4 feet. The water temperature is just great, and with air temperatures averaging a brutal 105 degrees in the summertime, even a wipeout can be the most wonderful thing that's ever happened.
Every good surfing beach has its class surfers, and the hot doggers here at Big Surf do all right. How do they do it? To build this 500,000-gallon reservoir, there are 3 huge Caterpillar engines, each capable of pumping 35,000 gallons a minute. Now that's as much water as it takes to fill an average-sized swimming pool. When the gates open, the reservoir empties in just 2 seconds. The water hits a baffle reef on the floor of the 400-foot-long pool, and presto, you got waves. 2,000 to 3,000 people come here on an average summer day to lounge on the beach and watch the surfers. Once in a while, there's a big wave, 5 to 6 feet, respectable on any ocean beach. Or, for the little kids, you can slow down the pumps and create gentle swell.
In the summertime, the living is easy. And even in Arizona, the surfing is just great.
The trumpet, synonymous with Doc Severinsen, Harry James, and the legendary Louis Armstrong. Their instrument fascinated Scott Swaggart of Boulder, Colorado. He's curious to see how it's built from scratch. So for Scott, our Matty Majors was permitted to go behind the scenes of the world's largest trumpet factory in Elkhart, Indiana. You asked for it.
These trumpets were produced in the Vincent Bach plant, which is a division of Selmer Instrument Company in Elkhart, Indiana. And by the way, at that particular plant, they produce more brass instruments than any other manufacturer in America. We're going to tour that plant right now and watch the production of one of their major instruments, the birth of a trumpet. To make a trumpet, you begin with a pattern. It's traced onto a sheet of brass which is less than 1/16 of an inch thick. Then it's cut out. Initial forming is done by hand. In another part of the plant, workers have started to make the horn's valve cluster. The bell, too, has had more work done. One of the most critical steps is the ice bending. They do this by filling the tubing with water, quickly freezing it, then bending. They get perfect curves and no flat tubes. During the creation of the trumpet, there are lots of sub-assembly steps. Now, each one requires highly skilled workers. Selmer expects a mirror finish on each one of their horns. After the buffing, it's degreased, then given a coat of lacquer, which protects the metal's finish. Here, another of Selmer's master craftsmen hones the remaining pieces so they fit perfectly. Well, Scott Swaggart, you asked for it. Take it away, guys.
Imagine George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, and Ronald Reagan all in the same room discussing the nature of the presidency. Sound impossible? Well, at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, engineers have created a computer-controlled marvel that brings past U.S. presidents to life. Now, we're going to go behind the scenes to learn how this modern miracle works because Jamie Snook of Elkton, Maryland, you asked for it.
Rich, the famous park attracts millions of visitors each year. The Hall of Presidents is one of the most popular features and one of the most inspiring experiences to be found in any amusement center in the world. For our exclusive behind-the-scenes look, we begin with the latest figure to be added to this gallery of the nation's leaders, President Ronald Reagan. It all starts here in the studio of sculptor Blaine Gibson in Glendale, California. Every effort is made to capture an authentic likeness based on all that can be known about each president's particular personality.
Whether this is because he's Irish or what, there's a certain tendency for him to seem like he could erupt into a smile spontaneously. And I tried to capture that there is an inner sense of humor there, and the eyes show it, and even though, as I said, the mouth can't be expressing it widely, I felt that if I could show that anticipation of a little smile, it would be worthwhile.
Every detail, down to the braids and buttons, is a replica of the period in which each president served. Research on President Reagan's suit included a visit to his tailor in Washington to check sizes, materials, the style of the president's clothes. When all the fabricating and fashioning is done, the figures of the presidents take their places in the theaters.
With Ronald Reagan in place, all that remains now is the final magic touch of audio-animatronics, the highly technical science which breathes life into the figures.
As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. Surely God would not have created such a being as man with ability to grasp the infinite, to exist only for a day. No. No. Man was made for immortality.
Well, that's our show for tonight. We'll see you next time on... See you next time. Good night.